Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to be addressing taking breaks in a relationship because I see so much confusion about the topic. Some people will say breaks aren't good for the relationship, while others will say the contrary. And I've been asked questions like, can a relationship get back from a break? Is taking a break a bad sign? How can we make sure that we don't end up breaking up if we get back together? Should we even get back together if we've taken a break? Should we even, in the first place, be taking a break? And what do you believe about breaks? So, what I personally believe as a relationship coach when it comes to breaks. You will have answers to all of these, as today I'm going to be sharing 3 steps to navigate a break if you're currently in one and increase your chances of it actually benefiting your relationship. 2, my opinion on breaks as a relationship coach, why I see benefits in some cases and why I believe it's really unhelpful in others, and 10 mistakes that people make that defeat the whole purpose of breaks so that you can avoid them. And just so that we're on the same page, when I say break, I'm actually talking about a break from the relationship and not just a break from a conversation or from a situation. So it's like you're temporarily breaking up. That's how I'm going to be defining a break today. By the way, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Alex, a certified life and relationship coach, and I'm the face behind Toolbox for Love. I'm passionate about sharing what I've learned along the way and what I continue to learn so that you have the tools to navigate the complexities that sometimes love comes with and empower yourself to create the love that I believe you deserve. All right, let's have a look at the 3 steps to help you navigate a break if you're currently in one or considering one. Step 1. If you remember the episode in Friends where Ross and Rachel were on a break, it was so clear why it didn't work. They had very different definitions of what a break even was. Ross thought that his one-night stand wasn't considered cheating because he and Rachel were on a break, whereas Rachel thought that that was clearly considered cheating. And so step 1 is defining what a break even means to each of you. You can ask yourselves questions like, when we say a break, what do we mean by that? What are the do's and don'ts? For example, does a break mean time apart or an actual breakup? Will we stay in touch during this break or have no contact? Is it okay to see or date other people while we're on a break or not? You cannot take a break without defining what a break means to you and your partner. That not only helps you set the tone for the rest, but also helps you avoid misunderstandings and disappointment. We just can't assume that our partner will think exactly the same and that there is this universal definition of what a break is. That's something that you get to clarify with your partner from the start so that it doesn't defeat the whole purpose of taking a break. And you can literally see that as setting your own terms and conditions. Step 2. There's a common belief that time helps. That if we take a break and let some time pass, things will eventually get better if we get back together. Yes, in a way, time is helpful, but time alone isn't the answer when you're on a break. If you want the break to be beneficial to you and your partner and for it to be a worthwhile time, you need to clarify what the intentions of that break are. That's step 2. Why are we taking this break? What do we intend to do with the time that we have? What's its purpose? That gives you both a sense of direction, and without that direction, chances are really high that you'll take the break and be in the exact same spot when you get back together, when you maybe have another conversation after the break, and maybe even try to make things work again. Just like not defining what a break means to each of you, not defining what the intention behind is and what you're going to use the break for defeats the whole purpose of taking a break. So get very clear on what the intention is for your break. Now, that said, there are situations where breaks are more helpful than others. And in some situations, I wouldn't even recommend taking a break. I remember having this conversation with a client over a year ago who came for individual relationship support after being on a break with her partner a few times. Although there were many good things about the relationship, she was in a relationship with someone who triggered her a lot. He'd be more of the avoidant type if you're familiar with attachment styles, and she would be more of the anxious person. So when she would try to have certain conversations with him, he would need space and she would just lose it. She would get reactive, and that just pushed him further away, which hurt her even more. And when she eventually pulled away, he sometimes came back. And she realized it wasn't a sustainable way of being in a relationship, especially since she wanted to have kids in the future and wanted to set a good example of what healthy conflict resolution was, what a healthy conversation even looked like, regardless of how triggered they were. And so she couldn't imagine bringing up kids with this person in the state that they were in. And so she was considering taking another break. And that's when we started to work together and we looked at why she wanted to take a break. One, she wanted to take the time to determine if her partner was right for her in the first place. Two, she wanted to learn how to communicate and deal with her own triggers. While every situation is unique, I separate between individual work and relationship work. Individual work is anything that has to do with you, for example, self-reflection, processing, healing of some sort. That could be space to reflect on a big decision like staying in a relationship or not, or an important decision that you want to make in your relationship that just requires you some space to process. It could also be deciding what you're willing to tolerate or accept moving forward in your life and in your relationship, and that just requires some space for that reflection. Or it could be processing, healing from trauma or grief that you feel is negatively affecting the way that you show up in your relationship, and you want to be able to deal with that and have some space to do that. And it could also be if you're trying to seek a better understanding of yourself and your reactions, and so you want that space to learn. Relationship work is anything that directly has to do with the dynamics between you and your partner. For example, the way you communicate, how you manage triggers and big emotions like anxiety, stress, anger when you're upset with each other, how you resolve conflict, how you reach agreements, what you do when you're not on the same page, how you discuss important topics, how you balance alone time and together time, how you fill your cup even while being in the relationship so that you avoid losing yourself, how you overcome differences, how you set healthy boundaries. Those are things that depend on how you and your partner interact with each other. That's how I define relationship work compared to individual work. Now, you don't have to take a break to do the individual work, but a break can provide the space that you might need to come back to the relationship feeling more grounded and more at peace. In my client's case, yes, she could take a break to determine what she really wanted in a partner, what her reasons to stay were, what role she played in the relationship, understand more about herself and her reactions, etc., etc. But when it came to, for example, how to communicate, how to deal with her triggers, a break wasn't going to be helpful because as much as she can learn new communication skills and ways to manage her triggers and her reactions on her own, the reality is that she will only truly know how well she's capable to communicate and how well she's able to manage her emotions when she is faced with the situation in her relationship, when she is interacting with her partner, so when she's on the field. And I remember her saying how easier it would be to be single and to take a break from her partner, because that was then a space where he would not trigger her, where she would not feel so reactive, and that would help her feel more at peace. Well, I totally understand that, and we had discussed that together. She started to realize that her work was practicing managing her triggers, was practicing communicating effectively when she was upset, was practicing setting boundaries, was practicing expressing herself in a constructive way, and that all inside the relationship. It's like training a muscle with, for example, those machines that we see at the gym. We can learn all about how to train the muscle that we want to train, the ins and out of that, the ins and out also of the machine that we're going to use. But if we've only occasionally or never really used that machine or trained that muscle before, we won't actually be getting stronger. And so the real work is stepping inside the gym, is getting familiar with the machine, is knowing what muscle to train, is starting to train that muscle. And the more you do that, the more familiar you are with the work, the more you're able to train that muscle, the better you get. And the more it becomes second nature because you're building new habits and you're getting stronger and stronger. I believe that there are certain things that we cannot work on if we're not in a relationship. Our relationship holds up a mirror to how we handle situations. And we can blame our partners for the challenges that we're experiencing, but the way they behave is outside of our control. And so focusing on what they are doing or they are not doing does not empower us. What truly matters is our approach to situations. It's how we communicate, is what we tolerate, what boundaries we set, how we handle our reactions. That was a huge realization that Dennis and I had when we had almost broken up. We had considered the idea of going on a break or even breaking up altogether. And that was about 2 years into our relationship, and it happened again right before we reached the 5 year mark. That was over a decade ago. It's never happened again. But in those 5 first years, we kept on thinking that maybe a break was necessary for us until we realized that the constant fighting, the feeling misunderstood, feeling taken for granted were all things that we each had a part in. And we had to align on our needs. We had to understand each other's way to feel loved. We needed to understand how to communicate together, how to express our concerns, how to feel like we were still connected despite the situations. And that for us was the relationship work that we needed to work on. We could have taken a break, but would that have really solved the issues that we were having? Not really, because these issues were more of communication issues, how to deal with emotions when we're upset, how to voice our concerns, our complaints, our requests, how to resolve conflict, how to reach certain agreements because we are different in so many areas, and how to bridge that gap. That required us to both put in the work. And so, yes, it does take someone who's willing to make it work. But if you are looking to take a break, ask yourself why it is that you want to take a break. Is it more individual work, or is it more of the relationship work? And so that's why determining the intention behind the break is so important. In what ways do you hope that the break will help you and your relationship? And if you're truly honest with yourself, looking at why you want to take a break and knowing what you know now, is taking a break the only option for you? Is that the one that will increase your chances of your relationship working out if you give each other another chance? Taking a break isn't bad per se, and at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. But I hope that this gives you a perspective if you're currently confused as to whether or not you should even take a break and if it's even helpful for you, so that if you decide to take a break, it actually serves you. So step 3, you want to agree on a timeline, even if it's a rough one. I've heard people, even experts, say that a timeline isn't necessary, while others said that it was absolutely necessary. I won't try to convince you that a timeline is good, but I will share why it's useful so that you can then make your own decision. Giving yourselves a time frame as to when you want to get back together, or at least have a conversation or look into your next steps, is like having a light at the end of the tunnel. If it's not there, there's just uncertainty, there's darkness, there's confusion, and you don't know exactly where you're headed, you don't know how long it will be, and that's something that our brain does not like. It does not like that uncertainty. And so what's the point of being on a break if there is no end to it, if there's no clarity, if there's no light at the end of the tunnel, if there's not even the notion of checking in at some point? That to me is more like a breakup rather than a break, and it just gives space for doubts, for resentment, for frustration to accumulate because there's uncertainty, and that potentially leads to disconnection. Instead, if you do take a break, talk about when you would want to reconnect. Define if there will be like a no contact rule or not. And ask yourselves, when do we want to touch base again? And when we touch base, we can talk about next steps, but we can also define if we maybe need some more space. So have these little checkpoints so that you have some more clarity and you start to have that light at the end of the tunnel to reduce the uncertainty that the brain just hates, and it gives you more of a chance to reconnect once you decide your next steps. All right, so if you decide to take a break, here are the 10 common mistakes that I see people make so that you can avoid them and what to do instead. 1, using taking a break as your go-to card when you have a fight. So when you have a fight, one or both of you threatens to leave the relationship, even if it's temporarily. There's a difference between having a heated argument and asking for a timeout, so a temporary pause from the conversation to maybe cool down, for example, before you come back, and an actual break. The pause to cool down and then come back to the conversation is actually healthy if you do it in the right way. When you fight and there's an option of taking a break from the relationship, that becomes a form of escape, and it doesn't solve anything. You do not create trust if there's the constant option of leaving the relationship. Trust is created when you and your partner feel safe enough to go through conflict, to have an argument, to have a disagreement without one person leaving the relationship. Again, a temporary pause to cool down is totally healthy if you do it in the right way, but that's different than taking an actual break, leaving the relationship, wanting maybe no contact anymore, not really telling the other person when you'll be back. That's more like a break than an actual timeout from the conversation. And so using the break as your go-to card doesn't help you build trust. To help you feel safe in the relationship and to help you build more trust, it can be as simple as, we're going to work on not threatening to leave the relationship the next time we get into an argument. we won't use that card anymore. It can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as holding each other accountable and committing to that for next time. Common mistake number 2. Thinking that time alone will be enough. You need to use time wisely. I've been told that time is medicine, and I started to believe that until I realized that time also needs action. Time alone, in most situations, isn't enough. You need some sort of action or changed behavior to make the most out of the time that you're actually giving yourself so that you don't end up in the exact same spot further down the line. Common mistake number 3, assuming that your partner defines a break exactly the same way that you do and not defining what a break means to each of you. Remember that there is no universal definition of what a break means. Common mistake number 4, assuming that there is only one way to take a break. So for example, you asking yourself, should there be a no contact rule? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on the situation. How long should we take a break? Depends on your situation. Depends what you're working on. Depends on what you and your partner define. So ask yourself different questions you can start answering. For example, how long do we want to have this break for? What would, for example, a first timeline be if we're not really sure? Maybe we can give each other a month and then extend that if needed. Maybe we actually need some more time in our situation. Or it could be, what are the do's and don'ts for us? What is important for me in a break? What am I willing or not to tolerate if we're on a break, so that we can start defining how the break will look like for us. And that will feel so much more empowering when you set your own terms and conditions rather than looking at how you should be doing things. Because there are so many options as to how a break can look like. It really depends on your situation and it becomes very subjective. Common mistake number 5. Not having a clear purpose as to why you're even taking a break. You need to be clear on why you're temporarily separating so that you can increase your chances of it actually benefiting you. And that is step 2 of this video. So clarify your intention, clarify your purpose. Why are you taking a break? Make that very, very clear so that you again can use that time wisely. Mistake number 6. Mistaking relationship work for individual work. For example, taking a break to work on your triggers. Again, you could take a break to understand yourself better, to work on past trauma, for example, that you see affecting your reactions, and learn more about where your coping mechanisms are coming from, how your past maybe has influenced that. You can do all of that, but you will only know how effective you are at handling triggers while you're in the relationship, when you're faced with a situation, when you're interacting with your partner. Common mistake number 7, not having visibility when it comes to your timeline. Without a timeline, again, it's like being in a tunnel without the light at the end. So what I would suggest is to have at least a rough estimate as to how long the break will be before you reevaluate and decide your next steps together. That's step 3 that I explained earlier in this video. And mistake number 8 is similar to that. Having a no contact rule without any idea of when you will be in touch. So often I hear about the no contact rule and how that actually increases anxiety in the partner who has no idea when the other will reach out. And so instead of setting yourself up for anxiety, for confusion, for uncertainty, discuss, if you have a no contact rule, what that looks like and when you will get back in touch. At least, again, it could be for a check-in if you're not really sure how long you want the break to be. Some people will say, do not have a no contact rule, you have to stay in touch. Others will say, you have to have a no contact rule because you cannot be in touch during a break. I don't see that as black or white. I think it depends on your situation, depends what you're working on, depends how you define a break. But that said, I highly advise you to still have a timeline when it comes to the no contact rule. If you have no contact, still have that light at the end of the tunnel so that it doesn't increase the uncertainty, it doesn't accumulate frustration, anxiety that will then spill out when you get back in contact together and can actually do you a disservice because one or both of you will just be feeling more anxious rather than ready and confident to get back together or to discuss next steps. Common mistake number 9, resisting a partner who asks for a break. Trying to force someone to stay will likely push them away. So instead, focus on getting really clear on steps 1 to 3, what the break means, why you're taking it, and the timeline. So that as hard as it can be when someone asks for a break, you can still focus on getting as clear as possible on these different things so that you can navigate it with much more confidence. And mistake number 10, seeing a break as a failure and that it means that you and your partner are not meant to be with each other. If you think about it, many of us don't learn how to be healthy partners for each other. Many couples take breaks and still come back stronger after the break. A better approach is looking at the break and going, what is this showing us? And what can we do about it? That will help you feel more supported in the process rather than labeling a break as negative and that you or your partner or your relationship is a failure. Again, remember, we don't come with a relationship 101 manual that explains every single thing that we should be doing in our relationship to make it work. Every single relationship is unique, and so there is a process of what I call co-creation, is what are we deciding to create as two individuals coming together? What works for us? How do we bridge our differences? How do we communicate when we're upset? How do we communicate in general? How do we interact? How do we stay connected? All of those things are things that we need to figure out regardless of who we're with. So sometimes in some relationships and with some partners, a break can be necessary again for many different reasons. It doesn't mean necessarily that your relationship is bad. Look at that from the angle of what is this showing me? What is this showing us? And again, what can we do about it? All right, now you have the 3 steps to help you navigate a break in a way that benefits you. You have my thoughts as a relationship coach when it comes to breaks so that you can make your own informed decision. And you have the 10 common mistakes that people make when taking breaks so that you can avoid them. Now, if you're having doubts about whether or not it's even worth staying in your relationship and giving it another chance, I'll link a video in the description where I share specific questions that you can ask yourself to help you define your next steps with more confidence, clarity, and peace of mind. All right, I really hope that you learned something new today. If you did, please like this video, subscribe if you want to be notified for next videos, and comment what your biggest takeaway was. I love to read your comments, and if you have suggestions so that I can keep improving these videos, please also leave that in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.